Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Spaventoso Speculates. This episode, we have 15 more commander cards you should be buying and maybe playing, especially if you don't want to make friends. Most of these cards are going to be kind of hate pieces, maybe a little bit more stacksy, and definitely cards that you're going to want to include if you really know your pod and you know you want to annoy them and maybe use some cards that they've never seen before. And as always, you can skip to the end to look at the cheat sheet if you don't want to hear me talk. Let's get started with card number 1, Dark Suspicions. 2 and 2 black for an enchantment at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep. That player loses 1 life for each card in his or her hand more than you have in your hand. This card's about 50 cents. Foil $10. I'd probably be avoiding that, but looking to pick up a couple copies of this for about 50 cents, used in 0.03% of decks. Generally, you're going to want to use this probably in a deck you don't mind not having many cards in your hand. Maybe alongside some other discard, or maybe some sort of madness deck or graveyard-based strategy. Take a look over at the commanders that use it. Saizen, Perverter of Truth, Morgus, God of Slaughter, Malfagor. Lots of black commanders, but then some 2-color, 3-color commanders as well. Lisa, Shroud of Dusk. Some players are testing that out in there also. Card number 2. Death Cloud, X and 3 black for a sorcery. Each player loses X life, discards X cards, sacrifices X creatures, then sacrifices X lands. It's about $2 right now, maybe $3 in some places. Used in 0.30% of decks. A couple years back, this card did spike to almost $20. It's fallen back down now. Now would be the time to pick it up. You're going to probably want to use this as a sweeper, kind of reset the game a little bit. Mid-game, late game, pump a bunch of mana into it, and hopefully be able to reset afterwards. The swarm's million wings stir the foulest of breezes. Here are the commanders that players are using this card in. Tiny Bones, Trinket Thief, Tigrid, God of Fright, Nath of the Gilt Leaf. I do like it in the black and green decks just because you can ramp a little bit better, have a better, more solid mana base, and be able to come back easier after casting it. You might be less affected. But even about 13% of Braid's Cabal Minion players are using this card also. Card 3, Descent into Madness. It's an enchantment for 3 and 2 black. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a despair counter on Descent into Madness. Then each player exiles X permanents he or she controls and or cards from his or her hand, where X is the number of despair counters on Descent into Madness. Used in 0.02% of decks. The card's been hovering around 75 cents for most of its lifetime. It's about 50 cents now. I'm looking at the foil here for about $1.70. That might be a good pickup. This card is just consistently going to clear the board. So you're going to want to have a deck kind of built around this to maybe be able to have a lot of tokens that you would exile, and or just a ton of cards maybe that you bounced back to your hand. And then when you don't want it around anymore, you can sacrifice it. We'll take a look at who might be best using this card in their decks. Obeka, Splitter of Seconds, Umbrist, Fear Manifest, Anji, Falcon Wrath are all using this. Also some newer commander, maybe Deadpool, trading card, and then the Braids players. Also, and I see some Ketramos commanders using this as well. Card number 4, Desolation. 1 and 2 black for an enchantment at the at the end of each turn, each player who tapped a land for mana during that turn sacrifices a land. If a plains is sacrificed this way, Desolation deals 2 damage to that plains controllers. A while back, card spiked about 21, 22, over $8, or about $8, and now it's back down to around $1. Used in 0.14% of eligible decks. This is a pretty big hate piece, and you're definitely not going to be making a lot of friends running cards like this, especially in these commander decks. Turgid again, or the Enchanter, Obeka, Brute, Chronologist, Braids, Cabal Minion again, also the Braids Arisen Nightmare decks. And, I don't know about the white. You might not want to use white in there, but black, blue, looking good. Black, red, I think black, green as well. If you play those colors, might want to consider this card. Or if you have a lot of white commander players in your pod, this is a good card to be picking up. Card number 5, Destructive Flow. It is a black, red, and a green for an enchantment. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a non-basic land. Stage 2 of the Phyrexian invasion included the complete alteration of Dominaria's landscape. And that's what's going to happen if you run this card in your commander deck. Because most people, lots of players, use non-basic lands. This is going to consistently remove those non-basic lands. And maybe remove your friends too if they hate land destruction. Used in 0.26% of decks. The card spiked a while back to about maybe $1.50, $2, but it's back down to under $1. The 1262 foil, I'd be staying away from that unless maybe your local shop has a slightly play or moderately played one for a little bit cheaper. And it is not going to have a lot of decks that it's going to be able to fit in since it is 3 colors, but some of the commanders that use it are exactly those 3 colors: Lord Windgrace, Soul of Windgrace, Yurlok, and maybe some 5-color commanders like Child of Alara and Omnath. Locus of All are using this as well. You probably do want to also supplement it with some other land destruction cards, which we might see later in the list. And that brings us to card number 6, Devastating Dreams. 2 red, sorcery, as an additional cost to cast Devastating Dreams. Discard X cards at random from your hand. Each player sacrifices X lands. Devastating Dreams deals X damage to each creature. Come all dreams of storms of fire. This card is an $18 foil. I probably would be looking at the regular version for under $1. A while back, it was a little bit more, but it has since leveled off and used in 0.03% of decks. Probably because players don't like land destruction, but this list is not about making friends. It is about winning games and making enemies. The commanders that do that the best: Slicer Hired Muscles, Ozu the Punisher, Morgus again. See some Soul of Windgrace, also Corvold, Fakehurst King, Lord Windgrace. Again, this is probably another card you want to use with some other land destruction. I really do like it in the Zozu the Punisher deck. Next card, card 7, Dreamtides. 2 and 2 blue enchantment creatures do not untap during their controller's untap phase. Each non-green creature's controller may pay an additional 2 during his or her upkeep to untap that creature. As with a lot of other cards on this list, it spiked in 2021 or so to over 75 cents. It's back down to about between 35-50 cents for a clean copy, hopefully near mint. Used in 0.08% of decks. Let's flip over to the commanders, and you will see that mono blue, blue white, mostly Probably don't want to put this in a green commander. But Zur the Enchanter, Lavinia. Lots of commanders can use this, especially if green is a problem, especially if you are light on the creature package yourself. This might eat a disenchant that might save your Rhystic Study. You know? Go to card number 8, Dunebrood Nephilim. Black, red, green, and white for a creature Nephilim. Whenever Dunebrood Nephilim deals combat damage to a player, put a 1/1 colorless sand creature token into play for each land you control. The foil is almost $19, but I'd be picking up the non-foil versions for about $1. Used in 0.28% of decks, probably because it's 4 colors. It's going to be a little tough to fit in most decks. But since it's green, you're going to be able to mana fix. You're going to be able to ramp a lot of land into play, and thus get a lot of 1/1 colorless sand creature tokens. We look now at the commanders that are best making use out of this. Mostly 5-colored, a couple of 4-colored. Progenitus, Chromat, Morphin the Boundless, Kendrith, the Returned King, Child of Alara, Jared, mostly using this, 5%. I might want to look at the price of those sand tokens too before buying this card. Card number 9, Dystopia. 1 and 2 black for an enchantment, cumulative upkeep, 1 life. During each player's upkeep, if that player controls any green or white permanents, he or she sacrifices a green or white permanent. As with a lot of the other reserved list cards in this list, it spiked in about 2021, over $10. It's back down to under 5, but it looks like it's rising, so now might be a good time to pick this up if you don't have any. Obviously, probably not going to want to put it in a green or white commander deck, but the black and blue or black and red look like good homes. Especially a lot of some of the older commanders, Irini Sengir, are using it, but Tergrid on the list again. Some Yuriko players, Rowan, Scion of War. And this might be one of those metagame call ones where you bring it in if you kind of know what some of the players are consistently playing. If they're constantly playing green or white, or your deck has problems with green or white, this might be a card you want to consider. Moving right along to card number 10, Eidolon of the Rhetoric. 2 and a white enchantment creature spirit. Each player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn. It's a 1/4. It is the soul of a philosopher who died of starvation, contemplating the universe. There was a little bit of up and down of this card back in 2018, 2020. It started dropping. It's under 50 cents now. The foil is almost $6. Used in 1.40% of decks, which is pretty solid number. But I think more white players could be utilizing this type of spell, especially if you kind of plan around it. You have ways to cheat your cards into play, or maybe they have flash, or there's a bunch of instants in your deck, or you cast this the turn before you want to protect a combo. The commanders using this card, Heliod Suncrowned, Winota Joiner for forces. Zur the Enchanter's been on this list a lot. Lavinia again. Gadok Teague. A lot of green and white commanders that like this card. On to card 11. Elkin Lair. 3 and a red. Enchant World. During each player's upkeep, that player chooses a card at random from his or her hand and sets it aside, face up. The player may play that card as though it were in his or her hand. If that player does not play the card by the end of the turn, bury that card. It's from Visions. It's an old card. It spiked in 2021. It's back down to under $2. The art is what it is. Very red art. But I think it's a good way to force players to maybe be playing some spells that they're saving for later in the game, or have a chance to grab counter spells or hate pieces that players might not be able to play necessarily. If you can get this card down on turn 3 or 4, it's probably going to cause some havoc if it's grabbing cards that our players can't even cast. That might cost 5, 6, 7 mana. Or it'll eat a disenchant that might otherwise get another more important enchantment or artifact that you have that you're going to play later. Well, if we look over at the commanders that use this, Flubs the Fool, Rocco Street Chef, Norn the Wary, Ian Malcolm. Lots of mono red. Maybe mono red players, they don't mind the chaos as much as some of the other commander colors. Card 12, Energy Vortex. 3 and 2 blue. When Energy Vortex enters, choose target opponent. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove all energy counters from Energy Vortex during chosen opponent's upkeep. They pay 1 for each energy counter on Energy Vortex, or it deals 3 damage to him or her. X. Put X energy counters on Energy Vortex. Use this ability only during your upkeep. So this card, too, spiked. I don't know if it reached quite $10, but a little bit over $5. It's back down to under $1 now. So now would be a good time to grab it. Definitely not going to be friends with whoever you target with this card. But that's not the point of this list. Maybe somebody slighted you in a previous game, and now would be the chance to get them back by targeting them with Energy Vortex. Used in 0.1% of decks, 0.01% of decks, which is not very many. Here are the commanders that do use it. Atraxa Praetor's Voice, probably the best because of the proliferate. But some mono blue commanders as well. Especially some old janky commanders. They're probably looking to supplement their deck with old janky cards. But if this has been on your list to target, now would be the time to pick it up, since it's probably been at its cheapest it's been in a while. We are approaching the end of the list with card number 13 here, Epicenter. 4 and a red. For sorcery, target player sacrifices a land. That's not great, but if you have Threshold, all players sacrifice all lands instead. Sometimes destruction is Dominaria's way of rebuilding. Sometimes it's not. So this card is pretty high on the salt scale, according to EDH Rec. It is $9.25 for a foil, but it's about $2 for a non-foil. Probably a moderately played copy, but a near mint might be a little bit more. Used in 0.10% of decks, mostly because you would be run out of your local game shop if you put this in all your red decks. But if your pod doesn't mind having all their lands destroyed, you can run them in this commander. These commanders, Zozu the Punisher, Kibu Katabi Prince, Lord Windgrace, Clothis. Some of these commanders do deal with some land destruction. Child of Alara even. Just make sure that you are in a close-knit pod, or maybe in a tier 4 sort of commander pod before you cast that spell. Card 14, Equipose. It's an enchantment for 2 and a white. During your upkeep, for each land target player controls in excess of the number of lands you control, target land he or she controls phases out. Repeat this process for artifacts and then for creatures. This card spiked in 2021. I'm not sure about $40, but maybe a little bit over $20. And then back down to under $250, maybe $233 for some moderately played copies. Used in 0.03% of decks. as it's on the reserve list. It looks like somebody did probably try to buy them all out back then, and now it's cheap again. Now's the time to pick it up. Here are the commanders that might run this card. Grand Arbiter Augustine the Fourth. The War Doctor K9 Mark 1. Looks like a lot of the War Doctor decks. Zur, Eternal Schemer, and Zur the Enchanter. All sorts of white-red, white-blue. A couple of 3-color decks as well. Our last card today, Air Ties, Meddling, X and a blue. It's an interrupt, which is just an instant. When target spell is successfully cast, put X delay counters on it. X cannot be 0. During each upkeep of that spell's caster, remove a delay counter from the spell. If the spell has no delay counters on it, it resolves. So it was about $2. It's back down to under $1, used in 0.09% of decks. I think it's just a fun little counter spell. Might be a flavorful if you're running maybe like a Weatherlight strategy, or just need an extra counterspell in your blue decks. Something that maybe a lot of players don't see and they might not plan around. It's going to be best used on a spell that might be impactful in the moment, but if cast later, maybe it's not. Or to buy you a turn or two to prevent or protect yourself against the spell before you let it go off. Some of the commanders that might be running this: Atraxa Praetor's Voice, Urza, Lord High Artificer, Talleyrand, to say Weatherlight Captain. All these types of commanders and more can run this spell. So that's our list. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment which cards you use, which ones are total junk. And as promised, here is the cheat sheet for those of you who didn't want to listen to me talk. Thanks for watching. Check the playlist for more similar videos.